Caddis, Maximus here, this time with a super quick review of this super cheap $5 on sale Farberware dishwasher safe kitchen knife. It seems like the most ridiculous thing, but I needed one that was a little taller for cutting home-cooked pizzas. And since it was $5, I noticed it had the coating, and I assumed it was an anti-stick coating. It actually came in this packaging here. But yeah, on sale for $5. Japanese steel chef knife. We don't have any idea anything else by the greatest steel. They say rust-resistant coating is commercial dishwasher testing approved. So it's approved for testing in a commercial dishwasher. It actually hasn't been tested. It's some of the most ridiculous stuff. And then premium Japanese stainless steel blade. So I thought the point of the stainless steel blades was rust-resistant. This whole dishwasher safe thing is just weird. I've always used Cascade, never had any issues with rusty knives. There may be a big rash of poor quality knives, and that's what Farberware is attempting to address. Anyway, I bought it to kind of replace. I'm still going to keep this. This is one of my favorite kitchen knives. This is a Madame knife. I don't know how good it is, but it's a molybdenum steel knife. And one thing I found is it does get dull a little bit more quickly, and maybe isn't quite as hard. It feels like it has a little bit more flex than, say, a Farberware or even a forged knife. But one, I had an issue where the tang broke right here. It still works fine, but it's still a bit of a sharp edge there. One thing I have found is just the way that this molybdenum steel knife actually cuts when you put an edge on it. It seems to be pretty good. I don't do a lot of cutting performance testing because it's arbitrary unless you're really good at sharpening, so they have an even edge, and then you just take one point of the edge and cut through an amount of paper or something like that and see which one dulls more quickly. Otherwise, it's all kind of intrinsic on how you use your knives. That being said, the edge seems pretty good. It has a taller back, which is what I like. It does feel pretty hard, so it's going to be either one of those weird forms of stainless steel that they've been using for knives, or maybe even 440. Although if they're using 440C, I think they would really advertise it. But it seems like a decent grade steel, although it is Chinese made. Just a cheap plastic overmold handle. That's where they're saving a bunch of money instead of the additional expense of a wood handle and riveting, etc. But we can see this molybdenum steel hasn't had any issues corroding. And then this Culligan, or this Calphalon, I think that's how you say it. This, if we can get it to say, this is a forged knife. And it definitely feels a little bit stiffer than even the Farberware. Even though it's shorter, you can really feel that this is a much more rigid knife. And being forged, it really holds up. Now, this has a higher carbon content steel and isn't quite as corrosion resistant. So these little rust spots may be what they're talking about when they mean a dishwasher safe knife. But those little spots really indicate that you have a better grade of knife steel. You have to remember that stainless steels, as good as they are, just don't get super hard. Alloy steels that rust can end up getting significantly harder than even the hardest and toughest grades of a rust-resistant or stainless steel. And it's just part of what you have to accept. Stainless steel has many amazing properties besides being stainless. Many grades can be extremely durable, can take extreme amounts of heat. But the one thing they don't do is get to like Rockwell 65 and 67, super hard. And that's something to keep in mind. A knife that does actually get a little bit of rust, more than likely is going to end up holding a better and sharper edge. And in like food service, a harder knife, I believe, would be better than having one, maybe a molybdenum steel here, which is just a little bit softer, but it's definitely much tougher. You're not going to get any chipping. I'm not kind of sure what foods you would use something like that for, or what it was intended for. But it's something to keep in mind about these knives, and that's kind of the aspects of this Farberware. It does feel like it has a pretty hard steel, so it'll hold a pretty good edge, but it may encounter dings or chips a little bit more easily. And I think it's just gimmicky, this gray coating here that they say is dishwasher safe. Just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever when you're advertising a stainless steel blade. So I assume it was, a non-stick coating, but they don't say anything about it being non-stick. But I kind of assume that's really what it's for, is I'm thinking about it isn't so much for rust, but it's for being able to get cleaned more easily. things that don't want to get stuck to it. So if you have dried on food, that it'll wash off. Although I've been using Cascade and it always gets my knives and all my other silverware pretty darn clean, even with old dried on foods. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick review of this knife. It's a kind of a basic, on I think a regular price they're like $8 or $9, but they're cheap. And unless you're somebody who really likes to have a nice kitchen knife, if you do, then you'll end up doing your homework and finding whatever one satisfies you. But as far as a general layperson like me, for $5 this seems fine. If it works out, it'll be great. It has a nice deep edge, so you can get a lot of sharpenings out of it. And as long as the handle doesn't break off or get loose, and that it holds a decent edge without having to resharpen it all the time, and without it just getting a whole bunch of nicks in it, and not through abuse, but just it inevitably happens. I would say they're a fine knife for the price. Even at those prices, you'd think Harbor Freight would want to sell something like this because, in the package it actually looks pretty good. It's pretty weighty. It is only it's less than an eighth. It's like 3/32 of an inch thick. It does have a pretty thin blade, but, besides that, seems like a decent unit. One other thing I will mention is the handle is pretty good, but it feels just a little bit narrow. They could have made it a little bit wider. And especially down here, I don't like quite how sharp it is down at the bottom. On the top, I guess it's okay, but if you're going to do a plastic handle, give it a little bit of extra width so it's just a little bit easier to grip, and so you get not quite as much pressure especially when you're cutting things like mini cheeses, Parmesan cheese, that kind of stuff. You actually have to put a lot of pressure on the knife. So I think they could improve the ergonomics a little bit. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing my weird little channel, I should say. I hope you've been liking my little 3D animations. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.